Lovely morning in Viewers. Simon, tell us who you are and tell us what you do.
What do I do?
Right. Long list.
So I was ordained 9 years ago. I'm a self-supporting minister, so I help out in this church of St Mary's in Viewers. I'm also in the benefice with Assington and Little Cornard, so those three churches. And then I also have the privilege of helping out as Rural Dean across Sudbury Deanery. So I get to visit a lot of the churches around us. In my secular life, I work full-time in the electronics industry. The calling to ordained ministry that came 12 years ago when someone sat down in front of me and prompted me and said that they thought I ought to train for ordained ministry. That was not my calling at that time, but
was it a surprise to you?
Yes, a very big surprise. But actually, then the work of the Holy Spirit was there, and I suddenly realised, no, that is my calling. And so I was able to train part-time through ERMC, which meant that I could keep my full-time job. That calling continued to take me into the priesthood. The challenge with being self-supporting and working full-time is that there's a lot of pastoral work. It's just not possible to do pastoral visiting because I'm working during the week.
Do you work full-time?
Yes.
Full-time, wow.
So that's where this idea came that maybe I could help support our clergy who are full-time by taking on some of the role of being a rural dean. Helping them where possible, supporting them. They do just this wonderful ministry in all of our benefices and churches, and they do need our support.
So what does your week look like?
I work for a company, an international company. So we start off the day with Teams calls, including people from Taiwan, and we'll probably end the day with Teams calls with people in the US.
Yes.
And so it's a very international life. So there's something very refreshing about stepping away from that into people's lives here. Actually, there's ministry there because even in those businesses, it's people making those businesses run. We're talking to people all around the world. They are struggling in the same way everyone else is. Not always, but there have been some interesting times recently.
Just tell us a little bit about what area this deanery covers.
So we're Sudbury Deanery. As we sit here, we're right at the very bottom in Viewers. If we go right to the top, we get to Lawshall. And then we go over to the Glen Valley and to the west and over to the east to the Box River benefice. The centre is very much Sudbury with its churches, and Great Cornard is very much part of that hub. But there's that sense that every benefice has its own life, and yet it's a real joy when we come together as Deanery Synod and clergy chapter. I wouldn't want to single out any particular areas, but certainly certain parts of Sudbury and Great Cornard, there's a lot of need, and wealth sits side by side with poverty, and so the needs are everywhere, and what we try and do is support the best we can. Those people who find their lives impoverished in one way or another, they can also be in our rural communities. Actually, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And so much of that poverty is hidden, and that's a real challenge. People are proud and they don't necessarily tell. So how can we find out in a way that is loving and supportive and appropriate? That's something that we're always thinking about and praying about. It's not all about money, that is an element, but actually loneliness in our farming communities, those people working out in the fields, and there are a lot around here. It's a lonely profession, lifestyle. And then those people who are maybe living in our villages towards the end of their lives, isolated, how do we reach out there? My village of Assington, they've started a coffee morning. We're seeing people come along for that companionship, and it's supported by the church, but it's not actually run by the church, but we're there and just sitting alongside people and making friendships and providing that connection.
And talking about practical sort of demonstrations of faith, what are the sorts of things that are going on within the Deanery that connect people with that practical demonstration of Christian faith?
Pop-up shops. I think that there are a number of those. They're all called different things, so forgive me if I've forgotten all of them, but there's certainly one here. They are everywhere. I know there's a very successful one, or there is an ongoing very successful one in Great Cornard, which is serving a lot of needs, and they're elsewhere. That has been something that I think where we've been able to help and be involved and spread God love through just that little bit of service to others.
And from the growing younger perspective, bringing young people into our churches and supporting them outside our churches as well, what's going on in that area?
Connections with our local primary school are strengthened. We now have a table at the back of the church where people the younger ones can sit. So they're very much part of the service. They can have their own little activities going on at the time, but they are in the service. They're not disconnected. I think that's something that we've learned here, is that it's actually quite important to sort of keep the family together. And actually, if there's a bit of chat one way or another, that's fine. It's lovely to hear their voices, and hopefully it's lovely to hear our voices to them.